Okay. So a catastrophe is a miniature catastrophe, although I don't know, it seems bigger than it is. Has happened in that I think when I was cleaning out files on my computer, I deleted somehow the backup files to all of my early videos for my transition. Hopefully, I still have and can find my old YouTube account where I uploaded these things. Otherwise, all I'm going to have is pictures. And I don't really have many of those because I was relying on my videos. So that would be, I mean, it's, not life altering, but it would be nice to have those. Especially now. This is I quickly, added up some last months since my last one. I think it's my 22 months on T. I'm approaching my 2-year mark in October. Right now it's August 15th, 16th, I think? No, 15th. Yeah, August 15th. So things are going well. It ended up being good that I had time off. Well, for other reasons, because I have an entire life other than being trans. But I'm way more comfortable in who I am now as a person, and not just trying to become a guy, trying to pretend to be one. That I'm not. I'm just settling more into a connection between Sarah and Jesse as a human that started out and, surprise, still is naturally masculine on its own, so I don't have to actually pretend. And it does help that I've picked up, random social guy code things. I don't know, women are more talkative and personal in public. Stuff like that is just awkward if you do differently. And it's not changing my personality to conform to certain social interaction protocols, but at the same time, not worrying that naturally I'm more expressive than most guys. Honestly, I think it's a pity that they're not. I understand why way better now, just because of the whole atmosphere of being male. But the main point of this is that approaching my 2-year mark, I'm also approaching a complete emergence of Sarah pre-puberty and Jesse now. There's a big distinction between Sarah pre-puberty and Sarah post-puberty, and I think a big reason why I know in my previous videos I never really talked about this stuff very much. It was just physical stuff. It's because I didn't really have. It takes me a while to digest things, and I think now I'm coming to the point where this summer, in leaps and bounds, partially edged on by other events in my life, where I've realized that I move like I did when I was a kid. I react to things the way I did when I was a kid. When I didn't care, back when I didn't care. When I didn't think so much about who I was. And then when puberty hit, I started thinking about who I was. And that was when awkward set in. And I wasn't, I was stiff all the time. I wore clothes that hid, like just flat, which is great. I still sort of wear that, but I mean, that look is, more revealing in a masculine sort of way than a feminine sort of way, which is what it's supposed to be going towards Sarah. So in my brain, there's more of a connection, because when you change your name, or at least for me, when I changed my name, I felt like an entirely different person. Like you can adopt any sort of, like you're going under a transition that's physical and social, and you change your name, and your name means everything. That's why you change it. It means more than just gender. It's an identity. I mean, for my whole life, I was Sarah. I still am, and I'm still struggling with that part, identifying with the Sarah, because I associate Sarah with the part of my life that I thought the most about that name and how feminine it was, which was high school. But up until I think 8th grade maybe was when I started thinking about that stuff, but really up until 9th grade, really up until, I mean, end of 10th grade, 11th and 12th grade were the worst, I think. But really, up until 8th grade, I didn't even really think about it. 7th grade, I maybe started thinking about it and feeling awkward in a gender aspect. But before then, I was just Sarah, and I was just, I was just me. I would just run around. The name was a word. It wasn't a word that my identity as a person made the name what its identity was, as opposed to the other way around. Whereas in high school, it's like, oh God, this is a feminine name. I mean, it means princess. So when I changed my name to Jesse, there was a huge disconnect in my head. And it's so freeing now. And that's one reason I wanted to mark this, is because I don't really have the wherewithal to write it all down. But hopefully now I can take notes on it, now that having this base video to remember. But I am the same person as I was before high school in my brain. I'm not just an entirely different Jesse, as in the same person, but I'm Jesse. No, now I'm Jesse and Sarah. No one ever does, but if I see something that says Sarah, for example, and it's on like a picture, back of a photograph, Sarah's 12th birthday, my therapist wanted to see, on my last visit, pictures of what I looked like before my transition, and agreed that when I was a kid, in high school I was just really androgynous, but even as a kid I was, just a little boy. You couldn't tell the difference. I was just a kid, I was, maybe if you thought about it, it would be androgynous, but, so when I look at the picture, that's me. It's instantly recognizable. I mean, that's me, that's always been me, even high school pictures, that's me, that's always been me. But now the name on childhood pictures, that's also me. Sarah, oh, that's me. And it's not like, oh, that's me before my transition. That's me. Sarah and Jesse are the same now for that whole time period. All the parts of my life where I didn't try to be female or think about the fact that I wasn't feminine. Now, I thought about it sometimes when I was in elementary school. I mean, you're not oblivious, but it wasn't a major thing. There was no need to change anything. I had tons of friends. I was happy. I was excelling in school, sports, everything. I mean, well, always been a klutz at sports, but anyway, like I did stuff. I was normal in that respect. And now coming back to that, having time alone. It'll be interesting going back to Wellesley, because I'm going back to Wellesley, and I haven't been to Wellesley in a year and a half. I mean, I've visited, but tons have changed since I visited personally. So it'll be interesting going back to an all-female environment, the same one that made me realize I was trans, and see how that affects me again. Now that honestly, I am trans, and it doesn't seem like a transition to me, as much as it seems like I'm just a person who kind of jumped tracks. So then, took me a while to find where the tracks merge, which is what trans is. But you have the connotation of all the physical stuff, all the social stuff. The first few years of anybody's transition is going to be like that. In the years before it. But so I personally have come to a place where I am happy with my gender and my expression of gender, and of course I'll continue to grow within, like normal people do at this stage. Like a 21-year-old man is not the same kind of man as he is at 40, but he's the same person, and I think I've finally connected the person in all of that. So that's good. And I am Skyping shirtless because, not Skyping, video recording shirtless, because I wanted to show you how amazing my top surgery was. Now, I don't have my previous video anymore after the top surgery, but I do actually have photos from that, because that was a big thing. So, So I won't go into who and everything, Dr. Fisher, but because that was in the other video. But it's entirely, even though this is kind of pixelated, there are no scars. I mean, unless you look right around the nipple, on each of the nipples, and I think on the side there's a tiny scar somewhere. It's white, you can't see it in this. But I mean, everybody has scars like that. They were right, they said it looks just like you got a mole removed. I mean, or even didn't get a mole removed, you just have like a white mark there. It's not that big of a deal at all. And it's taken me until now to actually work on my chest, so it's been like flat and like sunken in over here because I have a bone off or something. But it's ended up really great. No one's ever known, even from the first day, but I wanted to, this is pretty much how it's going to be settled, like maybe I'll get more muscular, maybe I'll lose weight at certain times, other things, but this is the general construct of the chest, and it's phenomenal. I don't even really think about it. I forget a lot of times that I used to have a chest. Now, one interesting thing about me now feeling more connected to Sarah is that I no longer in my head have extreme boundaries between what's for females and what's not. So clothing-wise and stuff, with thinking about my chest, because I never thought about myself as having boobs. It wasn't like breasts are things for women. They look like this, blah blah blah. Great, I understand that perfectly. And yes, anatomically, great, I have them. But when I just think about them, I didn't even think about them. They're just part of my body that sticks out there. It's there. And I always wore sports bras. Once I realized that I could always wear sports bras. And so recently, I forget what it was. I think it was one of my sports bras that my mom took when I decided, when I got top surgery, or just started wearing my binder all the time. I saw it in the wash, and I was like, oh, that's mine. I just picked it up. Whereas the past couple of years, I would have been more touchy about that. Nope. But this one was like, oh, it's mine, and I could feel it on me, and imagining it, I could feel it on me, and it didn't feel weird. I've even had dreams lately where I'm wearing sports bras, and I'm a guy, and then I'm confused about the clothes. My body is exactly like it is now. I'm not confused about my body at all, but I get confused about the clothes because the people, the identities that wore them are now the same in my head. So it's interesting. I don't think I've had a dream with a skirt. I don't think I wore many skirts. I had one skirt when I went to England with Girl Scouts. That's about it. And I don't mind saying I was in the Girl Scouts. It's not a... I guess I've become... I would even risk saying more comfortable in my masculinity than an average 21-year-old male, because I know more what it is and what it isn't. That's a touchy thing, but it's, I know that I am, without having, inside I know that I am, because I know that I tried, because the funny thing is that I tried to be female in high school. That didn't work. I spent a year here trying to go out and socialize and being like, oh gosh, I'm a man, okay, I need to change how I act. And changing how I acted, sort of, and that not fitting, and then falling back into myself and being never questioned, and being myself. I was mistaken for a guy in my entire life. I don't think there's a year in my life that I wasn't at least once, mistaken for a guy. So I know that it's not just a protocol thing. It's not just how you respond to questions. It's not just your preferences, your tastes. It's not just how you look at women, how you treat women. Now it could be difficult in social settings to respond to things, and you naturally want to fit in. You naturally want to do stuff, and And I can find myself laughing with something that later I'm like, why did I laugh at that? It's terrible. So there's that going on. But I mean, most conscious men have that problem. I mean, we're not beasts. Now there are certain things that I can see how they brought up the beast label, but we're not. And it's an interesting. Male society has an interesting pattern. Interesting in that it's kind of stressful for me sometimes, as it is for most men. So, like, as a 21-year-old, I'm on track with that, you know, because they're approaching all this stuff, and I've caught up with them in the fact that I've had time to be male, and know more who I am, what makes me think that I'm more comfortable than they are, ultimately, is that I haven't had the years of, or that I understand masculinity better and mine better, even though I don't have as much experience there, is because I also don't have the years of labels being put on me and boundaries being put on me as a male. I haven't been like, oh, you're the jock. You know, you act like this, or you're a prep school boy, you know, like you dress like this, you approach ladies like this, you do this, or, you know, I haven't had any of that, or nerd or anything. You know, it isolates what you can be, because regardless of your group, I mean, it's the same for females, but to a lesser extent. With men, they're very groupy, I've found. And going to an all-women's college, certainly there's groups, but there's so much mixture between groups. It's not even funny. And here, even friends that I knew in high school, you know, they're girls all across the board. Throw in some lesbians, certainly they're girls too. But like all girls, there's a intermingling, acknowledgement of groups, but not a strict social divide between the groups. There's a lot of intermixing individually, well, and group-wise, I suppose, but mainly individually. Like, you can be in a few different groups, you know, like you can socialize, and it's not a big deal. Whereas if, I mean, a prep school boy, if he goes out and meets a nerd, he's immediately like, oh, okay, you know, like, my dad has the money, like, we do this, we're cool, we play lacrosse. I mean, this is extreme, but and the nerd guy is immediately on the bottom, and I mean, there's a hierarchy in that. And then if the prep school boy goes along and sees a prep school boy within that group who's a jock and like really, you know, athletic and really good at what he does athletic, and it's not a weird sport like cross country or something, or skinny guys, you know, like it's a you know, a sport that gets women mainly. Then that guy is on top. Whereas if you're in the nerds, I mean, it's just that there is overlap. Otherwise, people wouldn't be people. But socially, there's a much more distinct approach towards groups. And I think that's what, at the beginning, I felt all these pressures to, well, like, oh gosh, like, okay, I could go over here or be like people. I came home to Georgia, Hogansville, town of 3,000 people, next to a town of 30,000 people, with a little college in it, so it's got some, a pretty good little college. It's got a bunch of art stuff and everything, so it's got that, but it's like the worst college town ever. There's no college expansion beyond the campus. So the town where I did most of my stuff growing up, it's got different societies within it, and I realized that I was really awkward around the high school upper middle class boys from LaGrange High, which would be more like prep school. They're all the same. I mean, to me, obviously there's differences, but as a group, they're distinct. I was awkward around them at the pool because I used to work with them as a female, and of course I was awkward then, but I was used to being different. So now I'm I don't know. It took that plus like going to bars or something and being around really masculine guys, or going to the grocery store and just talking, like interacting, like, wait, where's the salt? Oh, okay, there it is, thank you. Going to the gas station, um, going to the bank, dealing with businessmen, like all these different types of men. There's differences, and in a way it made me feel more comfortable being male, but at first it was terrifying because I don't fit in any of these groups. I don't know how to socialize because, that's what it is. There's a distinct way of interacting for each of these groups, whereas with females, there's not as much of a distinct, unless you're a butch lesbian, or a butch straight woman, like a masculine straight woman. That's the only real difference. Of course, there are women that are really flamboyant, women that are quiet. But it's not the same as, like, they're entirely different ways of greeting people if you're a male. Like, depending on what you are. So I just naturally shake hands, and so it's weird when I was like, oh, wait, okay, it's a shoulder pad thing. I don't know, and then there are the more free-spirited guys who are comfortable with themselves, and so they don't feel inclined to go in that direction. And unfortunately, they're a minority, but fortunately, they exist. And because of them, all of a sudden, not that I met anyone in particular, but I think it helped going up to the city, Atlanta, for a couple of days, or every now and then, doing errands and stuff. Because it's a city, there's huge diversity. So it helped me realize, in a city, I'm just a person. Whereas in the majority of America, space-wise, there are places you fit into. And it's something I think most people, everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but most people take for granted, because unless you move places, you don't really question it. And even then, you don't necessarily question it. You just notice that, well, okay, the placement of people are different. It's different, And so I, as a female, knew my place. As a female, knew my place. And it was in between worlds. So nothing was expected of me, really. I could pick and choose. Like, I could pick the fact that my dad said, always give a firm handshake where the wrist is firm, but don't squeeze the guy's hand off. And so now that carries through, but I didn't pick it for an area, Things I was taught by my dad were life things. They weren't necessarily man things, because why would he teach me man things, And it's funny when he makes man jokes with me now. It's really funny, actually. Because I never got that before, so it's kind of an awkward dynamic between us. But it's interesting because I didn't get the whole to the extreme. I mean, I got the whole men are dumb. Like, he constantly told me men are stupid, don't trust men. And so that's kind of was one of my initial problems, and still is sort of a problem. But I'm rambling. I don't know where I started from with this thread of thought. But it's a really long video. It's always just going to stay on my computer. It won't be uploaded anywhere. I've become more comfortable with, when you initially enter a group, any sort of group setting, you notice the cliques first. You notice the differences, the people who dress differently, who act differently, who talk differently, who have different activities going on in their life. By the way, I'm not naked, I'm just wearing shorts. And that's what you worry about first, generally. And so I was worried about a lot of that, because I didn't even know what the different groups were. I just knew that they were there, because you can tell differences between, there's a giant divide between this guy and this guy. They're not talking. They're not communicating on the same level. so it's nice to know generics so that you can communicate with everybody. But it's and that's one thing. Women just they can talk to each other. They always have something in common. And maybe it's as simple as their period, but it's something that's deeply rooted, and it's wonderful, and I miss that. And I think that's one thing. That's one reason I still primarily talk to women in public. And I'm still nervous when talking to men. But I mean, there's obviously differences as well. I have noticed as well that it's not all social. A lot of it is physical, biological, whatever. I think a lot more is social than most people think, but more is biology than a lot of people who contend just for the social thing think. And I'm not an expert, but I mean that's been my personal experience, and I do think about these things a lot. Not only because I'm in the middle of it all the time, but because I just tend to think about things, stew about things and stuff. Because I feel before I think, so then I have to force myself to actually think through the feelings and connect things, which takes forever, which is why it's taken me forever to put all these thoughts down. And why I don't like writing it. I can't, if I have to write it out, I can't get it out before I forget what I'm saying. Because, I mean, I've already forgotten. I know I was talking about groups, but where I was before that. But that was a long time ago, so maybe that's not a bad thing. So I think that's enough for now, before we get to 30 minutes. I might actually start doing this regularly. Because like I said, writing is a struggle for me, for concentrating. I love writing, but I can only write at certain times, and if I lose train of thought once, it's all over. So, also, I will admit it is interesting watching myself. I've changed a lot, and when I look in the mirror, it's me, it's Jesse. And I've gotten to the point, and it's not like I've had this magical, I'm perfect transformation. I mean, I look in the mirror and my face, and I'm like, that's the same face I see every day. Why aren't you, like, why don't you look like some attractive man? I can't think of any attractive men's names right now. Not that I'm saying I think I'm ugly, because I mean, I do appreciate what I have, but I'm not floating on some high cloud where my transition has magically changed me into my vision of a perfect human. I'm phenomenally happy with my body. It feels like one piece, as opposed to one piece with giant holes cut out where I didn't want to think about it, like at the top, at the bottom. Nothing's been done in the lower portion, but I've grown a lot more comfortable with it the more comfortable I've grown with the rest of my body, and mainly with my person inside. But the body physically had a ton to do with it, and I have been beginning to get healthy and get in shape and everything, and that helps too, and that helps your brain too. So maybe that's why all these thoughts are kind of coming together at once, and I'm able to connect things. It's definitely the end to an era in my transition, and the beginning to an era in my transition. And I have no idea where it's going to go from here. I have no idea if I'm going to come across new giant revelations about being trans, or my identities, or if it's just going to continue from now on like any other regular, 21-year-old male would continue on through life. So we'll see. There've been interesting things to occur to me. So with that note, I'm gonna flex. Okay, just cause. It's fun. And I'm amazed at masculine muscles. Okay, that's not super impressive, but it's impressive because there's lines. Alright, so... Oh, wait. I don't know how to do that one. There. So, on that note, I'm gonna go and clean the bathtub. And I hope I find those video files. I really do. I'd watched them recently, so I don't know why certain ones were deleted and certain ones weren't. Anyway, bye.